Where there is no vision, people perish. Today I want to talk about top heavy. That's my subject. Top heavy. Top heavy. You may be seated. The Proverbs says, where there is no vision, people perish. Right? In Hosea 4:6 it says, my people die from a lack of knowledge. You don't know anything, right? And it's like we're born into a world that we don't know nothing about. It wasn't our fault. It wasn't by choice. You just happened to show up, right? And a lot of people are in the dark about what's going on, right? And they call it a dark world, right? Because, some people call it dark because of all the atrocities and things that are going on, right? And the abuses that you see, and people call that a dark world, right? But a dark world is not being able to see, okay? You have no vision. You can't see. You've been born into a dark world, meaning that you have no knowledge and understanding about what's going on. None at all. Right? So you stumble through life because you have no vision. You can't see what you're doing. Can't see what you're building. Can't see what you're making. Don't even know how to build it. None of that, right? So you stumble through life. You have trouble. You have problems. You have issues because you don't know what you're dealing with. And nobody's taught you what you've been born into. Am I right about that? But we go through life chasing our tails. We got this what you getting into itis, right? Your friends will call you up. They'll say, hey, what you getting into? That's your life. That's your vision. You have nothing planned for your life. You just get up in the morning and whatever happens that day, that's what you do. And whatever's going on. You have no foresight because of who and what you are. Right? You can't see past right now. When you leave this place, you have no idea what's going to happen. You can't see that. Right? Because you have no vision. You can't see your future. You don't know where you came from, and you don't know where you're going. Am I right about that? So people live their lives, at a disadvantage. They start out wrong. Right? If you start out wrong, you're going to end up wrong. But you go with what you know. You go with what you think is right. That's what you do. What you think you've been taught right. That's what you do. Right? So it's like, so in 1 Timothy chapter 1, and Paul was saying, even though I was once a blasphemer, and a persecutor, and a violent man, right? I was shown mercy because I acted out of ignorance and unbelief. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I thought I was doing right. I was persecuting people I thought I was supposed to persecute. I was throwing people in jail that I thought was supposed to be in jail. I thought I had zeal for God. Yes. But what I was doing was wrong. Because I started out wrong. I didn't have the right information in there. I didn't have the right vision. So you start out on the wrong foot doing wrong. Right? Because you don't know. Right? So it's like, and by not knowing, right? And by going off on our feelings and our emotions and our thoughts and what we think is right, we become unstable. right? We become unbalanced in life, right? Because we're chasing after things or pursuing things that have no meanings. It only has a purpose for what you're trying to achieve. It was like Solomon said, God has put a hard burden on man, right? He says, I understand it, right? Because he's put a hard burden on him. He don't know what he's doing. He just toils around in life doing whatever he's doing. He has no idea, right? He chases after things that bring no reward. You know, he toils after things. And it's like, he don't know anything. So it's like God placed a hard burden on man. He's got to figure it out for himself. He doesn't know he's been born into this world that is a game. It's not a game, but it's of life and death. You have no ideas. This is a game, or it's not a game, but it's a thing of life and death. You're either going to live or you're going to die. One or the other, right? But people think they're living because the sun is shining on them. They don't think they live in a dark world because they can wake up and the sun is still there, right? You have the wrong understanding because you haven't tried to get the proper understanding, right? Wisdom comes from God, and there's no other place that you can get it, right? It's from God. There's only one place to get understanding, and that's from God. But we go about seeking everything else. We go about doing what we feel is right any way we want to do it. Because we don't have God in us to teach us and to guide us and to tell us what's right to do. Right? And we don't even know we need to seek him. We're just out here chasing our tails, living in a dark world of not knowing what's going on. Right? So when our lives become unbalanced, right? Because you're operating out of not knowing. You're operating out of what you want, what you think you need, what you want to have, or what you think is best, right? You're operating out of that. And when you operate out of that and not having the right perspective, you become unbalanced. So it's like in construction. They'll drop a crane down because they got to get a load to the roof, right? But if you don't stack that load right, it becomes unbalanced. And if they take it up in the air, it's a possibility that that load can flip and hurt somebody, right? So it's very important that the load is balanced, right? You want to have a balanced load, right? And also, we have a beautiful tree here. You can see how symmetrical this tree is. It has a balance, a base, right? And it's symmetrical, right? So you have this beautiful tree. And what happens is a tree, when it grows, it develops an ecosystem in it, right? Birds flying in it, squirrels running around, chasing each other, right? Butterflies and all these things. It's a beautiful ecosystem. And when the sun is shining on it, and it's shining through it, and you're looking at it, it's probably one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen. A tree, right? Balance, life in it, right? But, and it has its ecosystem. But if the tree, a part of the tree decides to do what it wants to do, and it starts to sprout out at the top, that tree becomes unbalanced, and it becomes top heavy, right? And the part that's growing doesn't regard the rest of the tree. Doesn't understand it's putting stress on the tree. You know, getting ready to could be a potential problem for the tree, but it doesn't have any regard for the tree. It's only doing what it wants to do, right? And the tree can't see itself, but others can. And you walk by the tree, you be like, oh, that tree's top heavy. It needs to be cut, right? So, but if there's too much stress on the tree, the limb's going to break, right? And if the limb breaks, it's a possibility that it could splinter the whole tree. And you're just going to have to come and cut it down, right? But also, too, if the limb breaks, it's going to disrupt all the ecosystem within that tree. It's going to disrupt all the life going on in that tree, right? Also, too, if that tree hits the ground, anything on the ground, that limb can destroy, right? So you have a top-heavy tree, right, that needs to be cut, right? So in 1 Samuel chapter 14, the story about Saul and Jonathan, right? Now, before this, Jonathan had led a great victory for Israel. You know, he said, well, just him and his armor bearer. He said, let's go over to their side. And if they call us up, God gave them into our hands. But if he don't, we ain't going up there, right? So the guy they called out and said, hey, look at them, there they are. They done came out of the rocks. Look at the Israelites. They said, come on up. So we can, have our way with you. So Jonathan said, hey, God gave him into our hands. Let's climb on up. Just him and his armor bearer. So they climb up the side of the cliff, and they kill about 20 of them within an acre. Him and his armor bearer. Just having that belief in God, right? And then all of a sudden, they started turning on each other. They started killing one another. And the earth shook, and they just started panicking and taking off all over the place, right? And then Saul sees this. Hey, let's get after him, right? So they muster up everybody. And long story short, they chase him all the way down, right? But what happened was, after that battle, and they were chasing the remnants of the people, trying to kill them, right? They were walking through the forest, and Jonathan saw some honey in a honeycomb, right? Yeah. So as he's walking, he takes his spear and he dips it into the honeycomb and puts it on his lips and eats the honey, and his eyes get all bright, like, wow. And then one of the guys said, hey, man, your father put us under a strict oath. He said, we ain't supposed to be eating nothing until he's avenged of his enemies, right? And he said, that's dumb. He made it hard for us, right? Just look at what happened when I ate that honey. My eyes lit up. If we were able to eat some of the stuff that we took from the fighting, we would really take care of these dudes because we'd have the energy and stuff to do it. So my father's making trouble for us, right? So as they're going, they say, Saul says, let's go and fight get the Philistines and raid them all the way, right? And God doesn't answer him. So he says, yeah. So we go get the Philistines, and God doesn't answer him. So he says, well, who committed sin to where God ain't answering us no more, right? And he says, me and my son Jonathan, we're going to stand over here. Y'all stand over there, right? And he says, if the lot falls on me and my son, and if it's Jonathan, I'm going to have to kill him, right? So the lot fell on him and Jonathan. And then him and Jonathan separated. And then the lot fell on Jonathan. Right. And he said, what did you do, Jonathan? He said, all I did was dip my spear in a little bit of honey. And I got to die? Right? And he said, be it ever so severely if you don't die, Jonathan. And the men stepped up and said, hold up, man. Wait a minute. You're not going to kill Jonathan. Jonathan led us to this great victory that we have today. You're not going to kill him, right? So Saul and all the men, they got behind Jonathan and said, that's not going to happen. And Saul relented. He said, it's not going to happen. See? See, Saul got to a point to where he was all about himself. He didn't care about the people that were with him. He became top-heavy in his thinking. It was all about him. He had no regard for the men, right? So as night came and everything, and they were able to get something to eat, they were taking the things that they were eating and slaughtering the calves and whatever it was and eating it with the blood in it because they were starving. And they came to Saul and they said, Saul, the men are eating the meat with the blood in it. He said, oh no, we're sinning against God. Bring the meat to me and I'll sacrifice it. See, what he did was, it was all about him, right? And since it was all about him, he's trying to place the blame that the men are sinning on the men. But it was his fault that the men were sinning. It wasn't the men, they were starving. But it was all about his ego, his pride, his glory. And he had no regards for the men and the people that were with him. See that? See, it's like, you're that tree. You're the tree. And you have an ecosystem living within you. You got kids, grandkids, cousins, and all of that with you. And they're looking at you. And they're depending on you to be stable. You can't allow yourself to become top-heavy in your thinking. Doesn't matter what it is. Anger, lust, anything like that. You have to stay symmetrical and balanced because people depend on you. If you go out there and you follow what you want with no regard to your ecosystem and your tree, you go out there and chase your desires, that tree limb can break. And when it breaks, it can splinter the whole tree. Am I right about that? And not only when it breaks, you can destroy your whole ecosystem. You can mess up your kids' lives, your family's lives, because of something that you wanted. You became out of balance. And now everybody's affected because of what you did. Am I right about that? Look, God has given us light. He has sacrificed. He thought so much of you, right? And he loved you so much that he sent his son to give you light. See, you don't have vision without light. You're going to stumble your way through life for the rest of your life because you have nothing to illuminate your path. You need vision. You need light to be able to see what you're building and what you're doing. Too many times we let anger, anxiety, depression just grow. Grow. And if that busts, you're going to have a nervous breakdown and everything that you've been building and growing will be wiped out. Am I right about that? We need to stay balanced. All right? We need to keep our composure. We need knowledge. When you get in trouble and you have a problem, you want what? Knowledge. What happened? Why did it happen to me? What am I doing wrong? You want knowledge. And the only place to get that knowledge is through God. Am I right about it? See, this is the time of season to where we are to reflect on the blessings that God has given us. Right? See, when the sun shines on you and through you, right? You can see your kids sliding across the floor. You can hear the noise of them in the house, you know. You can feel all the things, the beauty that that tree provides. And that right there is your joy. That's your joy. That's your peace. It's staying balanced. That tree that God has provided you, that is illuminating, that He's illuminating to you, you can see, I pray that you can see it. I pray that you can actually understand the blessing that God has given you. To look back and reflect on it. But you're not going to see it unless you let the light shine in you and through you. Am I right about that? So, when you lose vision, when you lose your understanding, you tend to grow top heavy, right? So it's like you have to understand that God provides everything that you need. Amen. Right? Everything is that those kids need, that the things that's in your environment, right? God provides for you to provide for them. Right? So stay balanced in what you do. This is a holiday season today, this week. So take your time, be still, know that He is God, right? Keep yourself balanced and let Him shine through you so you can see those blessings that He has given you this holiday season. Amen? Amen. Well, that's all I got for y'all today.